Can you guess what Nintendo's biggest asset is? Is it the Mario franchise, or is it Zelda perhaps? Or no, I hear you saying it's Pokemon. Surely it's Pokemon. And the answer is no. Nintendo's biggest asset is their legal department, because with their latest US patent, Nintendo just went all out demon mode on the gaming industry. Picture this: you meet up with your friends to go shoot a couple of hoops, and after you swish that first 3-pointer, a gentleman in a suit approaches you and hands you a cease and desist letter, because the NBA actually has a patent on all hoop related sports. I really wish I was joking, but that is basically as bad as what Nintendo just did to the entire gaming industry. So clearly Nintendo was only getting started when they first sued Palworld, and honestly this could have huge ramifications. We should have known Nintendo was entering their evil era when they appointed a guy named Doug Bowser as Nintendo of America's CEO. But the catch is that this latest patent technically won't affect the current ongoing lawsuit with Palworld, although it will certainly be an issue at some point later down the line. So today let's dive in to figure out exactly what's going on. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. If you guys make it to the end of the video and you like it, consider dropping a thumbs up. It really helps out small channels. All right, let's jump right in here and take a look at what was just reported by Games Fray. They are like the #1 source for all things related to Nintendo's Palworld lawsuits, and here you can see they said last week Nintendo and the Pokemon company received a US patent on summoning a character and letting it fight another. Bro, how does Nintendo get a patent in 2025 for a video game where you summon a character and have it fight for you? This is actually insane. Let's take a look here at what is new in this development. So first of all, there's two patents actually that we have to talk about. The first one has to do with the patent that we referred to and reported on a few weeks ago, which has to do with the switching of riding mechanisms. So as we talked about in previous videos, Nintendo filed to have a patent in the United States where they would have a patent on, riding a particular character, non-playable character, and then switching from, like, let's say a ground mount to a flying character, or a flying character to a ground character, or something like that, right? And we talked about how that's ridiculous, but basically Nintendo did actually get that patent in the United States, but that is not the patent that we are talking about today, because that is nothing new. 1 week ago, on September 2nd 2025, the United States Patent and Trademark Office granted Nintendo another patent, US patent number 12,403,397, which covers the fundamental gameplay mechanic of summoning a character and letting it fight another. The related patent application was filed in March of 2023 and has now been granted by the USPTO without any objection. Now, I am not a lawyer and nothing in this video is legal advice, but luckily Games Fray actually breaks this patent down for us. So if you want, I'm going to link this down below if you want to actually read all 45 pages of the patent. It's filled with legalese, so I don't fully understand it, but Games Fray breaks this down for us step by step, and this new patent that they just got in the United States covers the following. So step one is it's a game. Okay, there must be a PC, console, whatever. It's a video game. Okay, step two is that the video game features a character in a virtual space. Most video games have that. Step three is that in the video game you must be able to summon a character. In the actual patent they call it a sub character, which means it's not the playable character, right? But for example, in Pokemon you summon a Pikachu, and that Pikachu would be considered a sub character because you're not playing as Pikachu, but you control Pikachu's actions. Then the logic of this patent branches out, okay, and the next step is that if you summon the sub character in a space where there's already another character, then you can instruct them to fight. So think about like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or in Legends Arceus, you send out a Pokemon onto the field, and if there's already one there, it initiates a battle, or it auto battles or something like that. Step 5 of this patent says that you could also summon this sub character in a space where there isn't an enemy there to fight. Okay, so think about in Scarlet and Violet, you just throw out a Pokemon and they just follow you around. Okay, and then step 6, which is the final step, is about sending a sub character out into a direction and then letting an automatic battle ensue with another character. And so again, this is just like the auto battling you could do in something like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And as you can imagine, this brand new patent has sent shockwaves through the gaming community, because this is such a generic patent that covers basically any video game that involves characters battling copying one another? I mean, that final step there sounds a little bit specific to Scarlet and Violet until you realize that the way that the patent is written, it is not clear whether the final step is even needed if one of the previous executed steps, so for example step number 4 where you throw a character out at another character and they start battling, if that step and all previous steps are present in a game. So Nintendo literally just patented like monster fighting in video games, which is like truly absurd. And one of the creators that I saw who had a really good take on this over on Twitter is Carnage. He said this is actually insane. All of game development is iterative. The idea that Nintendo has somehow been some golden child company and only used mechanics they came up with and didn't iterate off of others is insane. What a disgusting and corporate direction to take gaming. Shame on them. And even GamesFray said in their article here that there are wider ramifications of this patent on the gaming landscape. So specifically for the patent that I just told you about, it poses a fundamental threat to creativity and innovation in the games industry. So in other words, this is no longer specifically about Palworld. This can apply to a large number of games that already have this exact mechanic, as well as future game releases that will have it. So shout out to Honkai Nexus Anima. Hopefully Hoyoverse is willing to PvP Nintendo in the legal system, because we really need some of these bigger companies to step up and start giving them a black eye, because this is actually disgusting and is really toxic for the gaming industry. GamesFray goes on to say Nintendo's all-you-can patent approach is enabled by the fact that some patent offices appear to be in a difficult position to find prior art. So the industry at large will now have to think about what it should do. It could be that some game companies will now step up their patenting activity as well, because they're like, damn, Nintendo's just getting away with all of this. We can't let Nintendo just patent everything, because then they're just going to own the entire gaming industry, right? What's next? They're going to patent just being able to move a character in 3D environments. Like, okay, that's every 3D video game ever. Oh wait, oh, they just filed a new patent. It's about moving a character in a 2D environment. Oh wait, nope, they just filed a new patent. It's about a virtual card game. Oh, there you go. Nintendo just owns all the gaming market. Not only that, and what makes this even worse is that at some point companies that start losing market share might actually start following in Nintendo's footsteps and start patenting things for monetization. So in other words, instead of making their games better, right, Pokemon, right, we've gotten garbage Pokemon releases for a decade now, okay, instead of making their games better, what they do is they take the legal route and they start patenting everything, and then they don't have to compete in a free market, because, well, great news, a better competitor comes along, they violated a patent, or you just start licensing out these patents to other game developers to enable there to actually be some form of competition, right? But you and I both know that once those competing games get big enough, then they're going to stop sub-licensing and they're going to start taking them to court. Just to really drill home my point here, let's go over a list of games that will allegedly violate this new United States patent. Okay, first of all, Palworld obviously violates this. I mean, clearly that is the whole reason that they went this direction. Secondly, Shin Megami Tensei, or the Persona series, you can summon personas, and I mean that's it. You're going to court, right? We've got Digimon, any Digimon games, the Digimon story, Cyber Sleuth, right? GG, going to court. The Final Fantasy games, Dragon Quest, Temtem, Yokai Watch. There's indie games like Monster Sanctuary and Cassette Beasts. There's Koromon. There's Ni no Kuni with the familiars. There's World of Warcraft. A hunter can summon a pet, or a warlock can summon a demon or a familiar. There's even pet battles in World of Warcraft. There's Diablo has pets as well, and League of Legends has Tibbers. And what about familiars in Elden Ring? Or what about summoning a Daedric in an Elder Scrolls game? Or fucking Fable 2, you have a dog that you can that is a sub character that attacks other enemies, right? Or there's no end to this. You can go back infinitely throughout the games industry and you're gonna find examples. I wrote this entire list in like 6 minutes. You can find dozens and dozens of more examples of this in virtually every video game that has a companion system. And what makes this even worse is that our current United States Patent and Trademark Office has been making it harder and harder for petitioners to get patents revoked. So if we live in a world where it's getting harder and harder for petitioners to have a patent revoked, the only way that Nintendo is going gonna receive any sort of legal blow here is if they try to sue somebody in the United States over this and they lose before they actually take a settlement, or if another company actually goes ahead and tries to sue Nintendo for this or something like that. I don't know. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but like this just feels like Nintendo is trying to PvP the entire games industry, which they need to lose, right? And like, look, I've got plenty of Nintendo games. I like a lot of Nintendo games, but like objectively, this is horrible for the gaming industry. Like straight up, this is complete slimeball behavior. It's actually disgusting, and only bad things can come out of this type of behavior where big companies have more and more control over who can create what, just so that way, what? So they don't have to make a good Pokemon game anymore. The number one way that we can stop this is if nobody buys Legends EA, but based on the feedback that I've seen over on Twitter and on Instagram, there are millions of absolute drones, just pure Nintendo zombies that won't even admit that Legends EA looks like garbage. They can't possibly have that be the reality, because then their beloved nostalgic franchise is worse than they thought it was, right? Like they are being so intellectually dishonest with themselves when looking at Legends EA. They're like, this game looks so much better than Scarlet and Violet. Meanwhile, Scarlet and Violet is running on fucking 10-year-old hardware. No shit, it looks better than Scarlet and Violet, but even still, the art direction is uninspiring. It looks like stock Unity assets. I would have rather it been an Unreal Engine 5 release, even with all the bugs that might bring about. So the sad part is that the number one way that we can attack Nintendo is in their wallet, and people are still gonna buy the latest fucking Pokemon game, bro. It's actually disgusting. People don't even realize that they're literally paying to dig their own grave. Like they are guaranteeing the demise of their future franchises, and they're paying to do that, and they have no idea. They're like, oh, this guy's just a hater on the internet. It's like, no, dude, believe that if you want, but all we have to do is sit back and wait and see. And in 5 or 10 years, we're gonna all come back and say, hey, look, turns out the YouTubers were right after all. For me, what I pledge to do is I'm gonna be using Honkai Nexus Anima and Palworld as rallying points for people that want to go against Nintendo. So step 1 is stop buying Pokemon games, okay? Step 2 is start supporting their biggest competitors, and that is obviously Palworld. And if you want a free-to-play option that's coming out soon, Honkai Nexus Anima. And I'm not sponsored. I don't make any money off of this. I'm not even going to link to it in the description. I don't even care if you play it or not, but I will definitely be giving the game a try because I actually really want that game to succeed. First of all, because it would be nice to have a new monster battling and taming game that's actually high quality, unlike whatever Pokemon's been releasing lately. And 2, because I would love to see Nintendo challenge HoYoverse in the legal department. I would love to see it. Of course, Nintendo is a much bigger company than HoYoverse, obviously, right? MiHoYo and HoYoverse are worth about $25 billion, and Nintendo is worth like $110 billion, right? So Nintendo is clearly a bigger company, but once you start reaching into those multi-billions of dollars, at least HoYoverse can afford to ride out that legal battle with Nintendo. And I'm really hoping to get into the Honkai Nexus Anima closed beta. I think it starts on September 12th, which is literally my birthday, so that would be fantastic, although I won't be able to actually play that day because I won't be home. But either way, of all the things that Nintendo has done recently, this is the number one thing that I think is actually the most disgusting, which is insane to even think about, because we have been covering for the past 3 months different controversies and things that Nintendo has found themselves in, all on their own doing. I'm not manufacturing any of this shocking news. These are all just decisions Nintendo is organically making, and everyone thinks that I'm some Nintendo hater. Meanwhile, the entire shelf behind you is filled with, you know, games all the way from the NES all the way up through the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm not a Nintendo hater. I'm just reporting on what they're doing, and this might actually take the cake for the worst, most disgusting and nuclear option that they could have gone with, especially in the United States, bro. Shame on Nintendo. Absolute shame on Nintendo, and Pokemon deserves to fail after this. So I'm begging you, do not buy any of the future upcoming Pokemon games until they actually release a quality product. Consider dropping a thumbs up if you made it all the way to the end of this video. It really helps small channels like this beat the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload some more breaking news for the gaming industry. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.